The porcelain cup was slammed to the ground, and the debris splashed. Lu Ting's face was gloomy, and he gritted his teeth. Qianqi, why did you stop me just now? With your and my strength, it would be easy to kill that little thing. Qianqi frowned and said, Xiao Danren and the others were all there at the time. Do you think they would watch us kill that kid? Lu Ting snorted coldly, those guys don't know how to practice, so what if they help that little thing? I can suppress them all by myself. Qianqi's brows became more and more frowning. How could this guy be so stupid and offended Xiao Danren and the others, who will help them plant spiritual fields in the future? Qianqi was too lazy to explain, and said directly, don't forget what I told you last time. In a few days, this kid Lingzun will follow Sun Mazi to go to the spiritual field more than 20 miles away to eradicate insect pests. That's when he died. Lu Ting was stunned, still unwilling, and said fiercely, okay, then I'll wait a few days. Qianqi smiled slightly, and said leisurely, at that time, as long as this kid wants, the treasures on the snow-spotted leopard and the one-horned scale lizard will belong to the two of us. Lu Ting's heart became hot, and his expression became smug and ferocious. Little thing, let you live a few more days. For several days in a row, in addition to going out to help the villagers eradicate the pests in the spiritual field, Lingzun spent the rest of his time on cultivation, studying a Xiaoming divine art, practicing Bao Yuanj, rehearsing, March Fist, and 6 characters sword R2 apostrophe. Almost every spare time was used by Lingzun without any slack. The flesh of the snow-spotted leopard and the one-horned scale lizard from the last hunt, although a lot was distributed, the rest was enough for Lingzun to eat for more than 10 days. And with the addition of the flesh and blood of the two beasts, Lingzun's cultivation speed has also been significantly accelerated. Just yesterday, he even had the opportunity to advance to the third realm of true martial arts in one fell swoop, but in the end he was forced to hold back. Now, because there are 4 spiritual power vortexes on the 4 acupoints of the heart, the amount of spiritual power refined in his body seems to be small, but the quality of spiritual power has been improved by 4 levels, becoming pure and pure, condensed, strong and solid. According to Lingzun's idea, when all the spiritual power in the body is fully tempered to the point of fullness, it is not too late to choose to break through to advance. The reason for this is also very simple. In order to go further on the road of cultivation in the future, the stronger the foundation is, the smoother the road will be in the future. It's just that there are very few people who can achieve this step. The reason is that not everyone can have a spiritual power vortex to temper spiritual power like Lingzun. According to the aptitude of ordinary cultivators, the foundation of cultivation is already doomed and cannot be changed, so it is impossible to cultivate a solid foundation. This morning, Lingzun woke up from meditating. His breath was like an arrow, condensed and long, and his spiritual energy flowed lively and full of energy. Tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, you can advance. Lingzun took a deep breath. Like a whale swallowing water, the nearby air turned into a torrent and poured into Lingzun's mouth, rushing towards the limbs and bones, and immediately spewed out a turbid air from his nose. In practice, this phenomenon is called spitting out the old and accepting the new, swallowing the clear and upward chi, so as to hone the chi of the whole body, and finally eject the turbid chi in the body. This is also a sign that he is about to advance to the open house level of the third realm of true martial arts. To open a house is to open the house of the 5 internal organs. The 5 internal organs of a person correspond to the 5 elements. If you can clear the veins of the 5 internal organs and draw spiritual power into it, it is already a step forward on the road. Explore the old and absorb the new is to prepare for opening the house, remove the turbidity in the body, and draw the spiritual power to clear the 5 internal organs. In this way, the cultivator's whole body chi, vitality, inspiration, and so on will produce brand new changes. Walking out of the room, Lingzun practiced marching, boxing and 6-character swordsmanship in the morning light bath, then hurriedly washed and left the house. Today, He wants to go with Sun Mazi to help Ling Shan's Hong, which is more than 20 miles away from Feian village. Walking on the road in the village, when I saw Ling Xun's villagers all greeted warmly, Ling Xun nodded with a smile. Through these days of hard work, Ling Xun has long since integrated into the village and has been accepted and respected by all the villagers. Uncle Ling Xun, when will you teach us martial arts? On the way, a little kid shouted and asked. Come on, it won't take a few days. Ling Xun smiled and patted the little boy's head, and walked out of the village with Sun Mazi, who was waiting in the distance. At present, only the pests in Sun Mazi's family's spiritual field have not been resolved. As long as the work is over, Ling Xun can take time to teach the children in the village to practice martial arts. Sun Mazi was a middle-aged old man who was speechless. It took more than an hour for the two of them to come to the front of a spiritual field. There are 4 acres of land. Not far from the spiritual field is the Lei-Yin Mountain. When Ling Xun arrived here, he couldn't help but glance at the Lei-Yin Mountain. This mountain is hundreds of feet high, majestic and dangerous, and the rocks are exposed. Different from the blue-green color of other nearby mountains, this mountain presents a red color like the glow, as if the flames are burning, which is quite eye-catching. More than 100 years ago, when a cultivator from the eastern city of the Ziyao Empire passed by, he discovered a small ore vein in the hinterland of the fiery Smoky Mountain, which contained a wealth of red cloud fire copper. This is where the name of Feian village came from. It's just that time has changed. When the mines were dug up, the big men who were mining then left, leaving only a group of slaves to fend for themselves here. The villagers living in Feian village today are all descendants of slaves who were abandoned here. Ling Xun heard Xiao Tanren talk about this past, so when he saw this fiery Smoky Mountain at this time, he couldn't help but take a few more glances. However, as far as he knows, the places that contain the ore veins such as Feian fire copper are all extremely unique places of feng shui, and there is a lot of attention to this place. If there is a chance, I have to see it with my own eyes. If the guys who mined in the past had no eyes, they could let themselves pick up a cheap one. Ling Xun's mind flashed and he made a decision. Without further delay, Ling Xun took out the tool with ease, lifted his foot and walked into the spiritual field, and began to engrave the light-inducing spirit pattern. Sun Mazi was waiting not far from Ling Shan. The little things have come, let's do it. At the foot of the Lei-Yin Mountain, not far from this spiritual field, Lu Ting hid behind a boulder with a ferocious expression on his face. Wait a minute, every time this guy engraves the spirit pattern, he will consume his entire body's spiritual energy, and that's the best time to kill him. Qianqi looked calm. He was a cautious person. Lu Ting was a little dissatisfied, and said, with your cultivation and mine, can't you still deal with a little thing on the second floor of Zhenwu? Be careful. Qianqi was unmoved. Lu Ting was also helpless, his eyes dazed with rage. It was really difficult for him to understand why Qianqi, who had the cultivation base of the third realm of true martial arts, would pay such attention to this little thing Ling Xun. Not long after, there was a buzzing sound in the distant spiritual field, and a golden light shot straight into the sky. This is when the silver light spirit pattern began to play its role. Seeing such a scene, Qianqi couldn't help but sighed and said, with the ability of this kid, if he doesn't go against us, he can be gathered under Brother Lian roofing to play some effects. It's just a pity. Stop being hypocritical. Lu Ting took a sip in disdain. Qianqi smiled disapprovingly, got up straight, and walked towards the distant Ling Shan. Let's go. It's time to harvest the prey. It's long overdue. Lu Ting had been waiting impatiently for a long time. He got up in a rush, holding a giant hammer that shone with cold light in his hand, and rushed over like a bloodthirsty bull. The light-inducing spirit patterns play a magical role, and within a moment, they will definitely be able to catch all those beasts. Ling Xun didn't even need to look at it. He knew this would be the result. Even if he turned around and walked out of the spiritual field, what surprised him was that Sun Mazi had disappeared. Ling Xun's eyes swept around, and when he was feeling strange in his heart, he suddenly saw two figures in the distance rushing towards him. One has a slender figure, with a sinister face, holding a long spear, and the other has a burly figure with a ferocious face, holding a giant hammer. It was Qianqi and Luting. It was obvious that the visitor was not good, but Lin Xun was not panicking. He had long thought that Luting and Qianqi would come to trouble him, but he didn't expect it to be today. Thinking about Sun Mazi's sudden disappearance, Lin Xun immediately understood that this guy had already colluded with Luting and the two. Now there is no one here, and it is far away from Feian village. Even calling for help is impossible. It is indeed a good place to kill people. Lin Xun knew in his heart that this must be planned by Qianqi. Luting was rude and would never plan so carefully. He just stood there quietly, watching Luting and Qianqi getting closer and closer. His expression was calm, and there was a faint smile on the corner of his lips. The two are finally here. Lin Xun spoke softly. Both Luting and Qianqi were stunned. Originally, they thought that Lin Xun would suddenly change, and they were worried that Lin Xun would escape. Stop pretending. I want to see today. Who can save you? Luting cursed loudly, and when he saw Lin Xun so calm, the more angry and resentful he felt in his heart. Qianqi was also a little surprised by Lin Xun's calmness, but he regained his calmness immediately. His eyes were cold and sharp. No matter what tricks the other party played, he would definitely die today. The place you picked is good. I was also worried about where to wipe you out silently. I didn't expect that you have already dug your own burial place, which makes me a lot easier. In the sound of smiling, Lin Xun slowly pulled out the blue short blade from his waist. At this moment, his whole personality changed suddenly.